Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to thank and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hello everyone and welcome to Bouncing Back, the Personal Resilience Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. Let's get started. Hi Margaret, how are you?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm fine and I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you so much for being here. So you're a professor of many things. You've learnt about many things in your life and done many studies. It's an incredible career you've had. So for those who don't know you, do you mind explaining who you are and what it is you do?
Yes, it'd be my pleasure. I'm actually a transpersonal psychologist, psychotherapist for many, many years. I worked internationally with different peoples in different continents, which gives me insights in different unconsciousness. And I'm also a licensed acupuncturist, which has helped me to understand how energy functions. At the same time,
Wow.
I
Oh
have a
my
master's in
goodness.
psychology and I'm running a center here in Bali. So now I have to say, of
Hence the
course,
beautiful backdrop.
yes, and of course, I have many, many years of experience. So, yes, and I'm willing to open that up for people to maybe benefit from that or support people.
Definitely. Yeah. You've had an incredible career. How did you find yourself in this place to sort of go from, transprofessional psychotherapist to acupuncturist? Sort of how did you end up where you are today?
There is something we will get already into the resilience thing if I talk about that, because there's something about inner calling, yeah. And I came here
Mm.
to Bali when I was already 60 years old. So I've had an institute before. I trained psychotherapist for 22 years. And then it
Wow.
got me into Bali. It was a calling. I would call it a calling because I don't want to start talking about karma here, but I'll call it a calling. Yeah.
Yeah. No, of course. That's incredible. So, before we dive into the interview questions, the nitty gritty stuff that we're all looking forward to, we're going to do the part of the show which is where we get to know the guest. So, this is where I'm going to ask you some questions for the listeners to get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
Okay.
So, the first question is, what is a recent book you have read?
Well, basically, I read lots of books. And I also reread my own books a lot because maybe they were written 15 years
I love
ago
it.
and I have to rewrite some of the things because they're no longer up to date. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I do read lots of books basically, but that doesn't mean I read from beginning to end. It means I look at the title, I see what's the content. Is there something
Mm,
new? Because of course, a lot of late research has shown very incredible things, especially about
mm.
healing and frequency and electromagnetic fields and the psyche and things like that. So there's no specific book.
Right. Okay, but you just read lots of books. We love that. That's what we're here for on this show. So, what is a movie you would recommend? We spoke a bit about this before we started recording, so I'm interested.
Well, there are different things. If we talk about a commercial movie, not commercial, but an excellent movie is called Thrive, THRIVE number one. And that is available on YouTube. And this is one of the movies I recommend to everyone. And then there are many others
Okay.
because I also teach permaculture. The Thrive is excellent. It gives you a real education. Yeah.
All right. What's that? What's it about?
Thrive is about following the money, finding out where the money goes, who gets the money, the
Oh,
pyramid, and then what is happening
yeah.
with the people who are inventors and things like that. It's a very, very, I would say,
Interesting.
eye-opening. It's 12 years old, by the way, but I think it's an
Right. Wow.
eye-opener. It's an eye-opener, yes.
Still relevant.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah.
So my third question is, who is your famous role model?
All right. Uh, you know, I would break this down a little bit because there were several important teachers in my life at several different periods of my life. So there is not one
Mm,
role model, but there's several people I have learned a lot throughout my life from. I would say it like that. Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. Have they been like academic teachers or just like personal friends or?
For example, I was sometimes I was with the Tibetans. Yeah. Then I was in the Zen
Yeah, wow.
monastery. I was Zen teacher. Yeah. And then I have a permaculture
Wow.
culture teacher, which is very good, who is very, very excellent. It varies a lot. And of course, I have
Mm,
some friends who are in the academics who have do good work. So for me, that
yeah.
changes. It's not one role model per se. When you're young, I think you have a role model. You have a singer, you want to
Mm.
be like Elvis Presley or something like that. But
Yeah.
but this is more like flowing into different learning and having different
Mm,
people teaching you different things at different times.
mm, definitely. Yeah. It sounds interesting. I just want to touch sort of on something that you mentioned. You mentioned Tibet and sort of living with that and going to these different places. How many different countries have you visited? Do you know?
Well, I can tell you, I lived in different continents. Uh,
Okay.
I lived in countries, quite a few. I lived in Hawaii for a while in Zen monastery. I lived in Santa Fe for many years. I lived in New York for many years. I visited
Wow.
Okinawa because I used to do karate as well. Yeah, so I lived in
Oh,
Okinawa
cool.
for some time. Well, you're asking a lady who has lived many years already.
Well,
So
I love that. Well, you never know where people have been. I find it so interesting, and that has just informed
I taught in
clearly your academics
Russia
so
for.
much.
I
Oh,
taught in
wow.
Russia during the Glasnost period. So many. Yeah,
Mm,
I lived in Africa, in Kenya
wow.
for a while. So I have a lot of
Oh my goodness.
experience under my belt, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I hope when I get to that age, I can say that I have been to as many places as you have.
Well, I hope so. I hope it remains
I
open.
hope so too.
I hope
I
that we
hope so
can do
too.
that.
Oh, that would be amazing. So, my fourth and final question is a course you have completed.
Again, I don't want to sound overwhelming because I have done so many things. Yeah. I'm a PhD in transpersonal psychology and MA in psychology and counseling. Um, I'm an acupuncturist. I'm a certified permaculture teacher. I did shiatsu and also Japanese flower arrangement. I did for many years. Yeah, Ginobo,
Wow.
Kibana. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ginobo.
Oh
So
my goodness.
it's not a yeah. It's where life leads you. Yeah.
Yeah, not an easy question to answer clearly, but that is amazing. Very inspirational. So, thank you for answering those questions. We're going to dive into the nitty gritty sort of interview part of it now. So, as I already mentioned today, we are discussing how existential crises affect our personal resilience. So, for our listeners, Margaret, how would you define personal resilience?
To be very frank, I cannot define this in these terms. I can describe. I stay away
Okay.
from definition because it's different for each person, whatever that is.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that we've definitely found on this show is that everyone's definition of personal resilience is different. So I'm interested to see what you think.
Well, personal resilience has to do with being able to deal with daily things and the circumstances and all that
Mm,
which is happening right now. Yeah. So I would call
mm,
it your personal inner attitude towards things. Yeah, and
Okay,
that and,
interesting.
and that needs to be based on a powerful sense of self. Yeah,
Yeah.
a sense of self-worth. And if you talk about resilience, if I have a good and healthy sense of self within me, then I can deal with what's happening to me. My attitude changes, and I can deal with what's around with me, especially now. We need an inner stability. So we call it an inner stability, resilience, inner stability, and attitude.
Interesting. Yeah, I think from what I found with all the definitions that have been provided, or sort of the descriptions of personal resilience, because like you pointed out, it's something that you can't really define, and sort of you can't give it like a dictionary definition because it is so different and unique to each person. So, why do you think resilience is important in our life?
Um, I wouldn't call it resilience because resilience is from the outside.
Okay.
If you don't have a proper
Yeah.
sense of self and a connection with your inner being, and that manifests outside, you can call this
Mm.
resilience. But resilience to me is from the outside in. In order to be
Okay.
resilient, you have to first develop a good sense of self.
Yeah. Okay. So do you mean sort of like personal identity? Is that sort of what you mean?
Um, it's like learning to love yourself for who and what you are, and that gives you inner
Mm.
strength, and that in turn gives you the resilience.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't
Okay.
have that,
Interesting.
there's no resilience.
Yeah.
There's something
No,
prior to
definitely. I can agree.
resilience. There's prior to resilience. There's something prior to resilience. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's so interesting. So, a lot of people think that being resilient means being immune to stresses and adversity. What do you think about this? Why do you think people have this misconception?
Because we are not taught the proper way. We are not taught the proper way. We're exposed to so much stress. The only way to find inner peace or go inside is to do certain things and connect to the heart.
Mm.
So when I come from inside, then I can deal with these things differently. And I will choose to have
Yeah.
less stress, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because
Yeah.
I think of like the misconceptions surrounding resilience are sort of informed by a lot of different sort of variables that are uncontrollable. And you mentioned sort of choosing to not be stressed. Do you think people choose to be stressed?
They can only choose if they have a resting point within themselves.
Okay.
You cannot choose
So what
because
does that
you're overwhelmed from the outside. What it means that I can take a deep breath, I focus within, focus on your breath, calm down, feel yourself,
mean?
feel your heart, and see what is your choice now? How will I react to this? How will I do this? Now, what you're talking about, resilience, is based on the input of continuous stress in our world today. It doesn't matter if it's office, it doesn't matter if this or that and the other. We're continuously bombarded. So once you have the capability of focusing within to a resting point, I mean, self esteem or whatever you want to call it, it's not self esteem, it's really resting within. Then I say, okay, do
Mm.
I want this? Do I want this? Or no, this is too stressful for me. Okay? And then I
Yeah.
pull back and see what do I want? How do I want my life to be? Yeah.
Mm. Interesting. So I want to turn to existential crises now and sort of how that works as a human being, because you hear about these a lot, and I feel like I've never really understood at their core sort of what they're about and kind of what it actually means, because I hear about midlife crises a lot. I hear this I hear this a lot in terms of my friends and their parents and aunties and uncles and sort of stuff having midlife crises and existential crises. So, how do you define an existential crisis as a human being?
Uh, I see a lot of people in my practice, yeah? And I don't define because each one is different. I listen to what I get from that person to me. And to me,
Mm.
a crisis is a place where your inner being wants to change something. There's something which is not correct, which is not right, which doesn't befit you well. So a crisis is a chance, an opportunity to grow. Now, if I look at it from the negative perspective, then oh God, I mean, this is horrible, this is awful, this is this, and then the other. If I look at it from another perspective, okay, now I'm in this mess, I feel horrible, I don't know what to do. Let me see what is my next step. But in order to do that, you have to be connected to within. That's what I said before, yeah? You have to be connected within. If you're
Mm.
not connected within, you can't do that. So, and the existential crisis, not talking about the midlife crisis or whatever, existential crisis is mainly because there are no values available anymore. Yeah? You work in a
Okay.
factory, you work in an office, you work for money, you pay your rent, you do this, you do that, you bring a family up, and all of a sudden, is that it? Okay? Is that
Yeah.
it? No. Yes, that's it up to now. So you have to shift your values. You have to shift your values away from the money thing, away from these things. It doesn't mean you don't do it, but it doesn't take it is no longer the main lead in your life. Okay?
Mm. Yeah.
Money is energy. You need
Interesting.
it to live, but you can
Yeah.
change, shift, and yeah. But not this is not your all your focus. So midlife crisis is mainly of people who have been working a lot and maybe have been successful,
Mm.
maybe less successful, and all of a sudden it's boom. Yeah, is that it? So it's like now you have to look for different values. What are your values? What are you going to do with your life? How can you shift your value system? This is what I support people when they come to me, okay? With to they
Mm.
grow. It's a growth opportunity. It's an opportunity for growing. It tells you what you have been doing was okay. It's not this was bad. It's not that. What you have been doing up to now was okay. Now it's time to shift. It's time to learn something else. It's time to look forward to
Mm.
some other values. Maybe you wanted to become a diver. I don't know what. Maybe you want to become a gardener,
Yeah.
a gardener, or maybe you want to grow something. And I always recommend
Mm.
gardening and earth, always for healing. Yeah,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
grounding, very important. Or you
Mm.
want to make some pots and pottery. I don't know, but important is that the values change from the running for money, for running for success, into something which gives you quality. One is quantity, the
Mm.
other one is quality, and that's a
Yeah.
chance of growth. Okay.
Yeah. Definitely. I love that. That's great. I love that. Yeah. Quality versus quantity. I love it. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more in a second. But first, I want to ask you, how does existential crises and personal resilience affect us as a human? Sort of how are they intertwined?
If you
Hmm.
do not have a sense of self, now again, I'm talking with our innermost connection, with our heart, we are much more than just money making machines, okay? If you have that, or slaves running around, if you have that inner connection, deep inner connection, which I explained as if you act from there already,
Mm.
the existential crisis will affect you much less. It might affect you, but
Okay.
it will affect you much less because you already have certain values, and now you need to change the outer values in the
Mm.
existential crisis. It will affect you less. It might still affect you because you have to support a family, you have to do this, you have to do that, and you might have to get the whole family to support you in a sense, not in the money sense, but in the sense of emotionally, what are new values you can bring into the family with the family. So
Mm.
they are mostly interconnected, I would say. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm. Interesting. You've mentioned a lot, sort of just in the past couple of questions, having like a strong sense of self and like being connected with your inner self. What does that look like? How do you know, like when you see someone and you're talking with a client or something like that, how can you sort of tell, and how can a person tell if they are connected, like if they have a strong inner sense of themselves?
I work a lot with the heart. A lot of my work is meditation and meditation, heart meditation. And after a while, the heart responds directly. It has a voice. So if you don't know what to do, you just close your eyes, go to your heart and say, is that right? No. If no, you take the consequences for your action if it comes from the head. The heart chooses, the head executes. Okay? So I
Mm,
help people to find that place first, yeah, before anything else. To find that place where they can go and where they can get answers for themselves. But that takes a little training.
yeah.
Okay, it takes a little training. I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, it does, I guess. Like, I guess sort of my question was kind of asking, like, when people have an existential, I don't know, how do you know if you really like have a strong inner sense of self? Like, how do you know if you know who you really are? Like, how do you define that?
okay. Now you're trying to. I would have to give you a therapy session right now to show you that. Which I don't want to do. But
Yeah,
it's
right.
very interesting what you can do. You close your eyes, see yourself,
Mm.
see yourself sitting in this chair, and do you like what you see, or do you want to
Are
change
you
some
asking
of
me?
this? Yeah, I'm not doing the
Yeah.
exercise with you, but it's not the place to doing that. But
Yeah.
it's the capability of becoming an observer and the capability to see what you becoming an observer and see what are the things you like or dislike about you. Okay,
Mm.
and the things you dislike most, you need to embrace. Sounds funny, but it is like
Okay.
that. We all hit on top of it all the time, but that's not it. So when you do that, something happens inside, and that gives you stability.
Mm.
That stability can grow. I mean, I'm not giving you a therapy session here, so you have to come to see me to do that. But, but it's a very powerful tool to help people in
Mm.
a very short period of time, actually. Yeah. So,
Interesting.
so that
Okay. Yeah.
that it's like an inner vortex, an inner stability coming from the heart. If you learn to love yourself and like yourself, this can grow very
Mm.
quickly, and that is your guiding. What do you call it? Lighthouse or whatever, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. And from there, then you make
Yeah.
choices. You make choices. Yeah. And that's
Mm.
important.
Okay. Yeah. No.
So when people first come,
Interesting.
they might be. It's like they're removed from themselves. They're outside of themselves, or they're out of the body, whatever they
Mm.
are, due to some kind of trauma. It's like moving them back so they can come together again.
Mm.
And then you feel the center.
Interesting.
Mm.
Mm. That definitely, yes, thank you. That definitely answers my question. So, moving on, when we are kids, we don't think a lot about life and sort of what it means. And you can see this in children and how they react and all that kind of stuff. But when does the feeling of having a purpose in life sort of start to play an important role in our lives as humans?
That's very interesting because sometimes little kids have already a sense of purpose. Again,
Okay.
I cannot, you say 7 years, the thyroid stops working, da 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 da, the brain develops, da da da. I find that sometimes small children know exactly what they want to do.
Mm.
And there is no particular age. Of course, when you go through puberty, there's some ups and downs and hips and hops. And people have to try out some things. They should have the permission to
Mm.
try for a few years. But sense of purpose can be there very early or not at all. not in touch with that sense of purpose. Yeah, some are in touch with it, some are not in touch. And uh, again, when I say a purpose, meaning you have to be able to connect deep within to have the true purpose of your life. And some people, the purpose is really just to be happy and joyful. People have different purposes in life, I find. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Does it answer your question?
Yes, it does. I just like, how do you think this feeling and sense of purpose affects young people and how they grow up?
I think it has a powerful effect on young people because
Yeah.
they already know what's right and wrong. I don't like the word used right and wrong, but they already know what is conducive for their purpose. And maybe they do
Okay.
some errors on the way, but they will get back to it. Yeah, maybe there's some detours on the way, but they will get back to it at some point.
Mm.
Maybe only in the midlife crisis, because the sense, yeah, maybe the sense of purpose has been covered
Mm.
up, yeah, through
Mm.
all our conditioning and programs, yeah. So
Mm.
you,
Mm. Interesting. So you mentioned midlife crisis, and that takes me into my next question. So we hear terms like quarter life crisis or midlife crisis or all those kinds of things. And sort of, it sounds like the questioning of meaning and purpose of life can occur sort of like several times sort of throughout a human
yes,
lifespan.
absolutely.
Can you explain sort of what that means and why this happens?
No, I cannot. It's your destiny. It's your destiny. What I just said before, I said
Yeah.
sometimes your purpose gets covered up through whatever. You make a detour in drugs, you make a detour in this, you make a detour in this. And
Mm.
it just means that there's something, now we get to resilience, okay? Something very resilient in you which wants to follow your purpose. So it brings you back
Mm.
each time again. And that can be small crisis, can be midlife crisis, can be young people crisis, can be any time of your life can be a crisis. Again, we need to look at crisis as growth. It's trying to guide you back to your own way, to your own. If you want to use
Mm.
the word purpose, yes, I'll call it self. Yeah, want to use your own purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it can happen anytime
Mm. Yeah.
because kids then they have another father or another mother and they teach them this and they teach them that, and then this gets lost for a while, and then at some point, oh wait a second, this is not where I want to be. Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. So, how can we identify that what we are experiencing can be considered as an existential crisis?
I think most probably I would say like it's really shaking my foundation. Yeah, it's shaking me in my
Mm.
foundations. It's not just something. A trauma is one thing. Yeah, there may be different traumas which shake me in my foundation too, but it's like shaking my foundation of what I have done so far. All these things are no longer applicable. They don't satisfy anymore, and I need to do something. And there's something I need to find something else. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
describe it like that. Yeah,
Okay. So, how, as humans, how can we overcome an existential crisis? Do you think an existential crisis can be overcome, or do you think it's something else?
I think, frankly speaking, anything can be overcome. Okay,
Okay.
we have incredible healing potential in us, which is not recognized. We only treat the disease. We never look at the healing potential. And I think it's time to, it doesn't, it means also physical. Every cell has its own healing potential. But we don't, in our culture, we don't do that. We have allopathic medicine
Mm.
which treats symptoms. instead of stimulating the underlying healing potential. So if we go into the, what was the question? The identify is, what was your question? No, I'm getting
So,
lost
like,
here.
how can we, as
Identify.
humans, overcome an existential crisis? Yeah.
Okay. So again, change the perspective. Look at this shaking you from the bottom as something that wants something else to manifest. Wants to
Okay.
manifest who and what you're truly looking for, your purpose. Now I'm using your words, okay? Your purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, and if you can do that and get help, you need help. You need professional help. You have to get good professional help. But just psychological help is not enough, I think. You need to begin
Okay.
to believe in yourself again and believe that you are looking for something very valuable. And this is
Mm.
shifting this crisis into a another direction. If I think I'm destroyed, I don't want to do anything. Yes, this is what we are taught. It's a disease, it's an illness. It is not. It's a huge potential for growing, but you have to get this through your head and through here. And that's very difficult because we are not conditioned to do that. We are conditioned to look at the symptoms and not at the
Yeah,
possibility to which
definitely.
these symptoms open up. Yeah? Yes, it can be overcome.
Mm.
Absolutely, I think. I've worked with several people with that.
Okay.
It's not like that. And
Yeah.
I find it, how can I say, very rewarding if you see people moving slowly out of it and into something new and learning new things.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, I emphasize how important is the earth. Important is garden,
Mm.
touching clay, touching garden, doing gardening, or any of these things, because again, the earth resonates at the Schumann frequency, and this is your AC, this is your connection for grounding. And as soon as you're on the earth barefoot or something, automatically you will feel that particular connection to the earth, which is very helpful already on its own. Yeah. But if
Mm.
you have an existential crisis, you either go drinking or you go, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Or you go on drugs.
No, yeah.
You go on drugs, you escape, you try to escape. Yeah? Which
Mm.
is
Yeah.
okay because we are not taught to look at it. We're not taught this is this way, okay? And what I'm trying to say is
Mm.
it has to go this way. Look at it,
Interesting.
okay?
Mm.
And this takes
Mm.
courage. This takes courage, but
Definitely.
maybe most of your past life is down the hill, you know? This takes courage. So I invite you to have courage.
Mm.
Yes, you can overcome it
Interesting. Why do you think people find it so hard to have courage to overcome it?
because we're not taught. We're taught to
Right.
go for
Okay.
pills.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. You
Mm.
go, you want the instant release, and you go for pills. That doesn't mean pills
Mm.
cannot be helpful. Please don't misunderstand me. There may be a
Yeah.
support for a short period of time. Okay? That's okay. But that's the solution usually. Then more pills, more side effects, more pills, more other pills, then da 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 da.
Mm.
I see many
Definitely.
people.
So you touch. Sorry. Continue.
No, go ahead.
No, no. I'm interested.
Yeah, we don't we don't I mean, pills can be helpful if you're in a depression, but you need to look why you're in a depression. You need to look at
Mm.
what caused the depression and turn towards depression. And you don't do that because it's so difficult to get up in the morning and you do this and that and the other, yeah. So you need a kick in the butt and turn towards it and look at that inner child or whatever it is which has been depressed for so long. You need to hold it, you need to caress it, you need to love it. So that can help. Now, temporary pills is fine, no problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not a solution. I've seen people with 2, 3 years on pills and nothing changes. They have other side effects then.
Interesting. So you mentioned before the importance of engaging with the earth and sort of being grounded in that. And while we were doing our research for this show, we found a concept called eco-existential positive psychology. It's a very big name. So where this is where nature has an important role in dealing with an existential crisis. So can you help explain a little bit more about this idea? I know you touched on it before in terms of the importance of gardening is something that you recommend. And permaculture. How do you connect these things?
Well, I'm not familiar with this existential positive psychology. I'm not familiar with that
Right.
expression,
Neither
okay?
am I.
Eco existential positive psychology is a nice way of putting it. For me, it's not positive psychology. Psyche is soul in Greek,
Mm,
okay? So it's like
yeah.
allowing your soul to come forward or come out, okay? And
Mm,
eco meaning we are totally disconnected from the earth. We're totally disconnected from anything that is natural. Okay, we have all the asphalt, we have this and that and the other. So, in my experience, because I'm here in Bali and I'm running now for 15, 20 years this permaculture retreat center with heart self intelligence approach, is that if people come here, we have to do physical exercise, yeah, which means could be yoga, could be kung fu, could be qigong, anything else on a regular basis. You have to do work with yourself, and you have to do that means psychological approach is part of it. And then you have to work in the garden. You have to go in the garden. You have to feel the earth. As I said before, now there's a new thing is called grounding. And grounding is that the
yes.
frequency of the
Mm,
earth, yeah, this is the new thing. So absolutely, go barefoot. Go barefoot on the earth. Yeah, feel it. Touch. I don't know if you want to do pottery or cut wood or make wood carvings or something. Touch nature. That's very, very
mm,
important because that takes away already a lot of that stuff. And then, of course, your physical well being, which means good food. What means good
mm,
food? Well, that's I don't want to make any publicity for these things here, but good food means basically as little processed foods as possible. Yeah,
mm, yeah.
you know, as much as we can get because even the foods now we get it from the top. It's coming down. All this stuff. So
Mm,
that I would say there are a existential positive psychology. Okay, if you call it like that, it would include many
yeah.
different aspects, yeah, from in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can do that, and you can work, and you can work, and you can meditate. You can get this in your daily routine, all of it, if you have the courage to do so. Maybe you have to change your job.
Interesting. Yeah. There are definitely, I think as humans, we underestimate how important it is for us to sort of connect back with nature and how to have that relationship that is so, it's just so naturally calming. That's why people go to, resorts with like
That's
big,
right.
beautiful palm trees and they go to the Amazon and all that kind of stuff because it brings us sort of back to our core. And it's so funny that you mentioned grounding is because when I was little, that was something that was like we had to sort of do. Like my parents always made us like you take off your shoes and you go outside for like at least like half an hour a day and just
Right.
sort of like
Right.
sit
See?
in
Yes.
the trees and all that kind of stuff. And it's now that I've like grown up and it's not something that I do as much, I can see how important it was for me like as a child kind of balancing out that routine and just getting back to nature.
Yeah, so people, what they do today, they go to the beach for 2 weeks. Okay? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay because they think they can relax there, yeah? But to
Mm.
bring this into smaller increments in your daily life, if you have a park, hug the tree, go and hug a tree, talk to the tree. Tree has a spirit, hug the tree or whatever you want to do. Yeah, these are all, how can I say, entities, living things. Yeah.
Mm,
So I think there are many possibilities. It's not just done by, yeah, there are many possibilities.
mm, definitely. So we're going to move into the part of the show now where we talk about practice habit debriefs and sort of experiments that the experts have used to overcome whatever the topic is that we're talking about. So Margaret, what is a practice that you do to grow out of an existential crisis as a human being? Sort of, if you've ever had an existential crisis, what have you done to help sort of overcome it?
Well, I had several major changes in my life. Yeah. So I find that important is to look at it. First step is to look at it and see what is next. Where do I want to go? Why do I have this? Because I'm unhappy. I'm very unhappy about it. So that's number one, to recognize and see. Yeah. And then the next one is to look for parenthesis techniques. Yeah. And I find uh, for me, it was changing my whole life around completely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Personally.
wow.
And
Yeah.
into a very different way. I used to be a buyer for interstate department stores many, many years ago in the US. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, assistant buyer, sorry, no, 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 exaggerate. Okay, so I was in that stuff, yeah. So I was used to be in the travel field. So it's like looking at what is it I want to do. I had to try out several things for myself. Is this what I want to do?
Mm,
Because I felt when I was young, I had not the opportunity to try out different things. It was not available. So I tried particular different things out. But eventually what I came to see was, for me it was karate and meditation initially. Sport, not sports, a focused karate. Focused, like, could be tai chi, could be whatever, qigong. Focused and meditation. And I
mm.
went into a Zen monastery for, visited a Zen monastery for a year and a half in Hawaii. So that was my way of finding where I want to go. Okay, so I today I developed something which is called Heart Self Intelligence. There's my website, heartselfintelligence.me, and it is about getting to know yourself, getting to talk to your heart, knowing your heart, and through raising your vibrational levels, meaning compassion, gratitude, joy, yeah. And if these things come into your life, you won't have an existential crisis
Mm.
because they guide you in a different way. But it took
Well,
years,
that's good to
okay?
know.
It took years. Yeah, yeah, it took years. No, it's not like that. It took
Mm,
years. And so
mm.
I practice regular meditation every morning and every evening. People who come here, we
Okay.
start the day off with with yoga, then the evening meditation, heart meditation. Absolutely. Should be daily practice. This is your next question already, right? It should be daily practice. I think physical,
Mm.
but
Okay.
physically for some people it's the gym. But the gym does not help you to focus. It helps you to build up, yeah, and get rid of your
Yeah.
tension. It should be a more focused type of thing, where you work more with your, like Tai Chi, or like other means which work with your inner balance and things like that. Yeah, that's in my
Yeah.
opinion much more helpful. But if you need to work out, you work out. Okay, fine. That's one. Yeah, and then meditation, definitely yes. Food,
Okay. Interesting.
food,
So,
food.
do you? Oh, food.
Yes.
Okay.
By food,
Interesting.
food, like if possible, fresh food, as much as possible. Yeah.
Mm,
And now, And if you are not, I happen to be vegetarian, but if you're not vegetarian, you have to check where your meat is coming from. It's full of hormones, it's full of injections. So you have to see that you can buy organic grown stuff.
Mm.
That's important because you're eating all
Mm.
these things all the time.
Definitely.
And that's the poison which is in your body, which in turn goes into each cell and helps creating this existential crisis as well. So you need to detox as well.
Mm.
Yep.
Interesting.
Many,
So,
many
would
informations.
you
I'm sorry,
recommend?
but you're asking.
No, this is good. This is what we want. So, would you recommend that people set up a set time every day to meditate and do those
Absolutely.
physical activities? Okay.
Absolutely. Because if you set it up in the same place, in the same environment, builds up energy. It's like you're creating an energetic space for you. Each time you go in there, it becomes easier and easier and easier and creates more
Mm.
space. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, should they like decide a certain time, or do you just kind of like do it whenever you feel like it?
No, a certain time.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, it's about
that
that
needs a little
consistency and building up.
discipline. Yeah, discipline. I like to early in the
Interesting.
morning and in the late afternoon. Okay. Yeah, absolute discipline.
So,
Yes.
would you recommend meditation to everybody? Do you think it's something that everyone can do?
I think there are different meditations for different people. Yeah. So there's so many
Okay.
kinds of meditations. Like for example, if the person is very physical person, they can do movement meditation. Like the Sufis that whirl or whatever. So I think it's not one type. And maybe in your life you have to use different meditations at different times, but not one after the other each day. But do one for a
Mm.
period of time first to settle it in. Then maybe you need something else. Yeah, you need maybe Thich Nhat Hanh's meditation, whatever. It depends very much. Uh, I
Yeah,
Others need to dance like crazy.
that would be me.
Yeah, so it's not, this is not cast in stone. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I recommend heart meditation, no matter what other meditation you do as well.
Mm.
In addition to that,
Interesting.
to find your inner voice, find your inner voice. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you think this practice impacts your personality or your perception of life?
Well, you know, I'm surrounded. I have a very highly stressed life, if I want to call it like that, because,
Yeah.
but some days are better than others, yeah? But I feel I can just take a deep breath, step back, look at it, what's next. I think I'm very patient. I can deal with many difficult situations very calmly. It has impacted me tremendously, yes. But maybe that has also to do with age. I'm not sure about that. you know, maybe, maybe because I'm older, it just, okay, now what's next? Come on. So I'm not sure, but definitely meditation has a great effect. Absolutely. Because everything is outward and comes from
Yeah.
outside. Yeah.
Interesting. So, do you have, based on your experience, do you have any other recommendations of practice to be combined or used to improve what you're talking about?
Well, as I said before, it varies for people. Yeah. Some people
Mm.
like to look what is good for them. Like Tibetan meditation is different from some Eastern meditation or some mantra or some, I don't know, whatever. There's so many different meditations. And you have to look for yourself what is good. There's much around, but you have to be careful. I would be very careful.
Yeah.
And this is something about the heart. If you work with the heart and you feel the heart, it will know if this is good for you or not. Yeah, it will say, no, 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 no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because your mind judges differently if somebody is very flamboyant and very, we have all these huge gurus around here, especially here in Bali.
Mm.
There are many gurus here, and you need to be very, how can I say,
Mm.
aware and
Interesting.
awake. Yeah? Not everything is for
Yeah.
you. Sometimes you have to go the other way before you find out. It's possible too. Yeah. So,
Yeah, exactly.
but generally speaking, I think you can check out and feel how you feel about this particular.
Mm.
Don't be fascinated. Fascination killed the cat. Don't be fascinated. Feel. What do you feel? Do I feel good doing this? Do I feel really good? When then you ask your heart, do I feel good about doing this? Then you do it. If you feel, not really, it's interesting, and okay. So you have to, this is something you have to choose.
Mm.
I cannot tell
Definitely.
you. That's
Yeah.
something you, which is up to your makeup, up to your inner being, what you
Yeah.
want to do. Yeah. But definitely
Yeah.
include
Something that you have to
physical
choose.
approach. Definitely. Physical
Okay.
approach. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, Aikido, whatever it
Wonderful.
is, something soft, something stronger, but these have different centers. They're important. Weightlifting, good, but
Mm.
it's not the same focus.
No, definitely, yes. I can vouch for dancing. I've been a dancer my whole life, so
Yeah,
I feel like that's been almost my form of, yeah, that physical aspect of it, because it's something that I love and I crave all the time.
yeah, then do it and use it as your meditation.
I do.
Find your center in
I
that.
really feel it.
Yes, find your
Mm,
center in that.
definitely.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to move into audience questions now. So I've got some questions here that are relating to existential crises. So the first question is capitalism the reason that we have so many existential crises? Is it the constant drive for a life that is unattainable? It's a big question.
Wow, that's a big question.
Mm.
I would kind of try to reduce this a little bit, if I may. I would say our
Mm.
way of life will create existential crisis. And that may be
Okay.
capitalism, that may be corporate stuff, that may be governments, that may be politics, that may be anything else. For example, our way of life is the strongest one wins, everybody else loses. And that's a very
Mm.
unhealthy
Yep.
way of life. But we have that,
Mm.
the Olympic Games. If the next one has 1,000 less, he's forgotten. He trained as hard as the previous one. So I think our approach to life creates that. It's not just capitalism. I think if it's done properly and with proper care and proper respect, it's different, but it's not. We are trained to
Yep.
compete. And that is, I think, the reason for many existential crises.
Mm. Interesting.
The whole basis of life
So,
is not
mm,
appropriate. Yeah.
yeah, interesting. So, the next question that I've got is, do perfectionists suffer from existential crises more than others?
Very interesting question. To perfection. I mean, yes, because the perfectionist is a persona. It's not the
Mm.
person himself
Okay.
or itself. Okay. Perfection is
Mm.
like you put on the mask of the perfectionist, but you think it's you, huh? But it's not you.
Mm.
Okay. If it's you, it's much more
Interesting.
flexible. Yeah. So you have the
Yeah.
persona of the perfectionist. And I think, yes, it at some point it will crack.
Yeah.
That mask will crack, most probably.
Definitely. Yeah. Mm, we had a guest on, I think maybe 2-3 weeks ago, Elliot Cohen. Everyone go listen to the episode that we did with him. But we did an episode with him on perfectionism and sort of how it affects your personal resilience. And like you said, it does eventually sort of like scratch away at the surface, and it is a facade that eventually does sort of break down, and it just doesn't result in anything good as a human being, like you said.
Well, look at it this way. Uh, that's the one part, one side. The other side is maybe the kid, the little girl, had to be perfect to be accepted. So it has been a protection maybe for many, many years. And when the existential crisis comes, it breaks down. It's the opportunity to grow out of it.
Mm,
Okay? So it's not something negative. It's just something which was there to protect you or protect that part. Okay? And now it's
yeah.
time to let it go so your real you can come out.
Mm,
This is important.
no,
So it's not
definitely.
negative, yeah?
Mm,
Don't look at it negative.
no.
It has served a purpose of protecting the person. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's something that we don't sort of equate for easily. So the last question is, how can someone differentiate between an existential crisis and a mental health crisis such as depression?
That's a very good question. How can you differentiate? Uh, these definitions, they're according to the book, yeah?
Hmm.
Existential crisis, depression. I have seen people in a depression which are in an existential crisis, yeah?
Okay.
They cannot go forward. It's not possible for them to go forward because they are
Hmm.
paralyzed by the depression. So for me, that is a crisis. Uh, I I would not differentiate that strongly between the two
Okay. Interesting.
because
Okay.
one is a crack, huh? The other one is a slow
Hmm.
motion going down.
Yeah.
I can differentiate like that. But if you're in a deep depression, you cannot exist there, cannot do anything. It is a huge crisis. However, we don't look,
Hmm.
if you define it by the book, no. An existential crisis is mainly something happened all of a sudden. But that which happens all of a sudden doesn't happen all of a sudden either. It's a build up of maybe
Hmm.
40 years and then it crashes, okay? So a depression
Yeah.
is the depression is something where slowly, because of feeling worthless, because of not having the right condition, goes slowly downhill. Yeah.
Hmm.
So uh, I would say both need to be worked with similarly.
Okay. But not that big of a difference.
There is a difference in wording, and there's a difference of maybe the cause can be a
Hmm.
sudden break. The other one is a slow
Yeah.
one. But at the basis of that is a crisis.
Hmm.
At the basis of both is a crisis.
Yeah.
One is worthlessness, no will to live, no this and that and the other. Yeah. And the existential crisis is very similar. I don't want to do this anymore. It's just the values are different.
Hmm.
So
Interesting. Well,
I now, if you hold me by the psychoanalytical book, no, it's not like this, but it is. In my experience, it is like this. Yeah,
hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think experience speaks to much more than the book.
yeah, and also very often depression can be inherited, passed on. Yeah,
Mm.
uh, through families and things like that. Yeah, existential crisis
Yeah, definitely.
less. Okay, but
Mm.
we are an electromagnetic field. And if you are full of depression, you can't see anything, you can't feel anything, you can't do anything. If you're in an existential crisis, you have like more like it's not an explosion, but a breakdown, yeah? Something like that.
Mm. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm
No, I
talking
understand.
energetically now, energetically. It's a bit different. Yeah.
Mm. Interesting. I'm curious, just out of my own personal curiosity, how do you sort of engage acupuncture in this? Because it's something that sort of like both my parents have had done. My mum had it done when she was younger, when she was pregnant and all that kind of stuff. How do you think acupuncture sort of fits into this space? Because you've mentioned energy a lot. And so I'm just wondering if that's kind of connected or if that's something else.
Well, it was very helpful to learn about meridians and energy flow. Yeah, it's very, very helpful because you know exactly that how can I say, a physical discomfort is attached to the energy flow of your body. Okay, so you learn about
Mm.
that. For me, I don't do needles anymore, but I can see or I can feel or I can touch with my fingers certain points, and it can release certain things. Okay, I do it more
Okay.
like that. I don't want the metal anymore in people's body, the needles. It's too much. No,
Yeah.
but the system is very powerful because it connects with
Mm.
certain foods, it connects with certain the meridians. The dis-ease shows first in the meridians before it goes into the physical body. So if you have
Yeah.
a psychological problem, let's say I'm turning it a little bit different, like you're angry, you swallow your anger, okay? You get an ulcer, okay? You eat your anger inside, you get an ulcer. So you first of all, you can express your anger. You can also work
Yeah.
with touching the points where the anger sits and release some of that. Okay? There are many different approaches.
Mm.
I find it very helpful to understand the interaction of that.
Interesting.
Does that answer
Yeah.
your
I've always found
question?
it fascinating.
Huh?
Yeah. No, I've always found it fascinating because, yeah, it's something that both my parents have had done and it was something that they were very, yeah, passionate about. But I've always sort of been interested. I was like, oh, should I try it? I don't know.
Well, I think, what it does, it regulates your energy flow. You can
Mm.
regulate your. So you see, the principle of acupuncture is different from Western principle. The Western principles, you work with the symptoms
Okay.
and you fight the intrusion.
Mm.
You do chemotherapy, you do this, and the chemotherapy kills anything, everything anyhow. You fight the intrusion. The Eastern, that's why it doesn't work. They cannot test it properly. The Eastern one is you check the pulses, you see which energy flow is weak, you reinforce the positive energy flow again and again and again and again until it by itself releases the part which is not flowing. That's a
Mm.
very different principle. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
huge difference.
definitely.
It's a huge difference. So you cannot empirical research. Yeah, yes, you can do, but you cannot compare them and do trial. It's not possible because one works with the principle of activation of your own life energy. The other one works with the principle of fighting the intruder. They're very different. So
Mm.
once you know
No,
that,
definitely.
no, yeah.
Interesting. So we're going to move into the open mic section of the podcast now. So this is where the guest, Margaret, gets to talk about anything that she's passionate about. It doesn't have to be related to resilience or anything like that. So Margaret, I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you very much, dear. What am I passionate about? Well, I'm passionate about heart self-intelligence, the intelligence
Mm.
our inner, intricate, innermost being, which is highly intelligent. As I was talking about before, about the potential of healing within ourselves. And I think what we're trying to open up is knowing that you have the healing capabilities within you. However, it's really suppressed, depressed all the time. So once we can access the voice of the heart, which is done through meditation. And on my website, there's some classes also, heartselfintelligence.me. And once this is done, then you can use that to raise your vibrational frequency. Meaning, we work with compassion, we work with gratitude. That in turn opens the heart more and more, love. And that gives you access to your innermost, deepest being. And the innermost, deepest being is that which has the intelligence of healing you. Okay? That doesn't mean you shouldn't get any pills. You can still get your pills. It is not the point. The point is that you start believing and knowing that you're much, much larger and much bigger than you think. Yeah, no, you're not
Mm.
just this restricted thing, which this is this and this is this and this is this, but you can access that inner force. And right now, the time where we are, you know that we are in the universe in a very different position in the Milky Way. We are we are influenced by very powerful energies. So this is accessible to us now. It was not accessible maybe 150 years ago. We were in a different place in the universe. So now it's accessible to you. So take your chance. Start working and looking from the heart and start working with those inner huge capabilities you have. That's why I'm saying
Yeah.
when they say here, what did they say? Existential positive. To me, it's not existential positive. To me, it is your true birthright. Getting to your true
Mm.
birthright. That's for me. So that's
Wow.
my passionate speech.
No, I love it. It's great. And yeah, we will leave the link to Margret's website and all her other details in the description below. So thank you so much, Margret. That pretty much brings us to the end of our podcast today, unless there's anything else you'd like to say.
Well, I want to thank you and your assistant for being so helpful with me with all
Mm.
this equipment and stuff. Thank you, Tia, for your
It is.
questions. And I
It is
appreciated being
difficult,
interviewed
yes.
by you.
No, it's been wonderful. For those who are listening, I'm currently in Queensland, Australia, and then producer is in Melbourne, and Margaret's in Indonesia. So we're all spread out all over the place. But thanks to technology, we're able to do
This is the good thing about it. We can do this, yeah?
this. Exactly. Thanks, yes, to all the people who made this possible. And that brings us to the end of it. We'll have all of Margret details in the bio, so you can go and look at her incredible website and learn a bit more about her, and maybe go visit her out there in gorgeous Bali, because it looks stunning. I've got to say, everyone's definitely got to go see the video version of this, because Margret's background is beautiful.
Okay.
Much
Yeah.
nicer than mine. Well, thanks so much, Margret, again.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Bouncing Back, the Personal Resilience Science Insights podcast produced by the Life Management Science Labs. Listen to episodes from LMSL's 10 Life Management Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or other podcasting apps on your smartphone. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps others find us and us grow to bring you more quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website at pr.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Tia Harmer. Thanks for tuning in.